and welcome to a very special live episode of the Present Poetry Podcast. We have the pleasure of interviewing Clint Frakes today. Clint Frakes is a poet, writer, teacher, and ceremonialist living in Sedona, Arizona, and the Verde Valley since 1992. His poetry, prose, and narrative nonfiction has appeared in nearly 200 journals, magazines, and anthologies in the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and Argentina since 1987. He was named one of the best new poets of 2008 by former American Poet Laureate Mark Strand and received the Josephine Distinguished Poets Prize. Other awards include the James Vaughan Poetry Prize, the Pudding House Chapbook Prize, and the Peggy Ferris Memorial Prize for Poetry. He is a graduate of the Jack Kerouac School of Poetics at Naropa University in Boulder, where he studied with Allen Ginsberg and Anne Waldman. He received his MA at the Northern Arizona University Creative Writing Program and received his PhD with emphasis in creative writing from the University of Hawaii. His publications include Myths, Beasts, and the Ways of Water, published by Seven Worlds Press 2025, The Aching Unrest of Spheres, published by Finishing Line 2024, and Mystery Not Always Unkind, published by Pudding House Press 2008. He is the former chief editor of the Hawaii Review and the founder of Seven Worlds Press. Clint currently lives in Cornville, Arizona with his sons, Quanah and Dawson. We are excited to have him on the podcast today. So without further ado, Clint Frakes. Welcome back to the podcast, and I do appreciate you working with me on the technical issues I've been having. And I did find new and better questions for you.
Woo!
So
the other ones weren't bad. I just thought it'd be fun to try something new.
Oh yeah, no, I was with you. So let's begin with, what is your main motivation to write poetry?
Wow. You know, I like what Wallace Stevens said. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but he said something like, and I think this might be true of all art, really, but poetry is the pushback on the violence of the world. And there's subtle forms of that, and there are gross forms of that. I like what Elizabeth Bishop said, which was, without poetry, how would we know the strangeness of things?
Oh, that is a good point, because poetry does bring out the weird, or it is a way to express it.
Yeah. And, you know, there are things that must be praised, and sometimes you're the person to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And like any good writing, and any writer committed to, the art, you're the only person that can tell certain things, so you must.
Mm-hmm. Reminds me of a saying that I heard a while back, and I can't recall who actually said it. I think I read it somewhere, but it was, there may be no new ideas, but the way you express those ideas is what makes it unique.
Yeah.
And I feel that's kind of what you're going off of too.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah. Ezra Pound said, I don't know if he used literature or poetry, but poetry is news that stays news.
mm-hmm. He was a poet. He was. He did a lot of, I believe, the Romanticism.
No, he was a straight on modernist, anti-romantic imagist. He's the father of imagism and kind of modern American poetry.
You are absolutely right. I was thinking of somebody else.
More anti-romantic in his head about. Though I don't think there's any poet writing in English that isn't somewhat working out of the momentum of the romantic tradition. I just don't think there's any way out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in my opinion, the baseline of poet is to romanticize reality.
I think it's the complete opposite.
Think so? Absolutely. Let's talk about it.
Well, like I really do have a soft spot in my heart for the imagists and the objectivists, which were really anti-romantic in their sensibility. Again, bearing in mind they're working out of a genre of art that is basically born of the romantic. So I think modernism, one of the defining, attributes of modernism really is essentially anti-romantic,
Okay.
with much more emphasis on the image as the true emotional complexity. But that the romantics always find their way in, to
Hmm.
this kind of things. Like Cummings, I mean, one of the three heads of modernism, and he had very romantic sensibilities there.
Hmm. It's been a minute since I've read his works, but I can definitely see that. And I agree. What I meant by romanticizing reality is a lot of my poetry is finding the good within the bad. And I think that a lot of poets kind of go in that direction. Like uh, they will express the bad, but then find a way out of it.
Hmm.
And to me, that's a bit romantic. Like being able
Yeah,
to find a love for life in spite of the trouble.
it's actually building a reality from the ground up. Ultimately, I mean that I think that's one of the sustaining powers of poetry is that it creates reality,
Hmm.
and you can decide what the germ of a reality is upon which your study is founded and pursue it. And we need as many takes on reality as we can to be free people.
No, I completely agree with you on that one. You get no complaints from me. Now, I did notice when going through the book that you sent me that a lot of your poems are more freeform, more liberal with the style. Do you have a favorite traditional form that you used or that you have used in the past?
I think I kind of work out of classical forms of, say, for instance, the ode or the sonnet, but like a very modern turn.
Okay.
I do find myself writing a lot of elegies. I like forms. I always sort of throwing a little monkey wrench into the
Mhm.
conformity of the form. But I think forms are great, man. It's especially I think forms are best when you're a little stuck, and it's like, hey, you've got to use these 6 words in alternating sequence in 6 stanzas. Sometimes there's no better medicine for a stuck writer than a form.
Mhm. I agree. I love forms personally. I study them in my off time, but they offer a bit more of a challenge, I think, because you have to pick your words extremely carefully in order to fit it within the guidelines.
Yeah, yeah. I taught a lot of college English creative writing. And I would give these crazy forms to my students, and they would get so pissed off at me. But the whole point was to make them work within these words to get them started. So it'd be write a 17-line poem that includes Elvis, giraffes, and licorice,
Mm,
and um, it's amazing how liberating that perceived constriction can be because it has already started building your poem to some extent.
hmm. Yeah, and giving them that kind of platform to bounce off of. It's like you can have as many wild ideas as you want as long as it goes with or as long as it contains that thing. And I agree, it is very liberating because you have your starting point. You just got to go from there.
Yep. And then in your revision process, something else might show itself, and those things might not even appear, but it got you rolling. You know, it was your initial impetus.
Exactly. Exactly. And a lot of poets, I believe, benefit from that. I noticed in your bio that it said you were a ceremonialist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am. I do operate a ministry over here in northern Arizona. I do a lot of spiritual work with people on the land, um, grounded mostly in indigenous traditions.
Okay.
Um, so I do a lot of work with traditional native mythology. I do a lot of weddings and funerals and baptisms and rites of passage, mostly drawing from indigenous tradition, Lakota tradition, primarily because my family is Lakota.
Okay.
Um, but, you know, some of them are innovative too. The ceremonies are particular to the place where I live. This is actually not too far. That background you see in my shot there is
Hmm.
just a couple miles down the road, and I take people out among those great altars of the ancient red earth, and we get down into the elemental.
Hmm. And that's a gorgeous vista behind you. So, but you said
Yeah,
your family
it's
was
beautiful.
Lakota. Are you part of that tribe then, or?
Yeah, I was adopted into a Rosebud Sioux family when I was young.
Okay. So you
So
definitely have the background.
yeah, I was around it as a young person and kind of brought up in those ways. Yeah.
So, well, that's really cool. Now, my final question for you, and it's a big one. So,
Okay.
as an award-winning poet, what is your advice for someone who would like to make a name for themselves in poetry? Do you have any
Hmm.
insight into what the award councils are looking for, or any advice on
But there's really no
how to
guessing
climb the
on that.
ladder?
I'm going to quote Henry Miller.
Okay,
write write as you like and die happy. Um,
it's a great quote.
and aside from that, uh, don't write in isolation. Waiting for an editor to see how great you are. Cultivate great readers. Cultivate great communities. Not just poets either, but writers, philosophers, anybody that deals with language, and get as many perspectives on your work from intelligent people that are interested in reading poetry as you can, and then it'll help you with things like accessibility. How is this likely to be taken? What words are kind of tired here? And then just like every other poet, you've probably heard this one yourself a million times. Like, of course, nobody really gets like physical rejection slips anymore. They wallpaper your writing space with them, and just keep on going. And I'm really fond of Jack Kerouac's 23 Principles of Bot Prosody, and everybody should look at that. The theory of spontaneous prose, and he was a poet too, but it applies. Um, Always write into your jewel center of interest was one of the first ones, and don't stop, but to see the image more clearly. So overthinking things, I think, is a big mistake, and realizing that you have all the time in the world to redraft, but in those initial gestures, like go deep, unfiltered, see what comes out, and don't even think about it till later.
Okay, so don't write for the awards, write for yourself, and then the awards will
Oh
follow.
yeah, there's no such thing as writing for awards. It's all luck. It's like and know when you're on a roll, man. Like as a writer,
Hmm.
uh, there's these certain pockets where it's just hot, and it's really good as a writer to identify when that is and take advantage of it. Not to say that the cold times you should stop, because that has its own value. Like I'm like myself at this point, like bring the obstacle on now, like bring it on. I want to meet that impasse as soon as possible and feel flustered and frustrated and inept and ready to quit and keep going anyway.
And I agree. And I think that is fantastic advice that I myself will try and implement from here on out. And I'm sure others will as well. On that note, would you like to share some of your poems with us?
Sure. Um, yeah, I've tagged a few. I'm reading from my new book called I don't know if you can see it, Myths, Beasts, and the Ways of Water. Last year, and I'm gonna read mostly from that.
Okay.
Okay. And hey, happy National Poetry Month. It's good
Yes,
month to
happy
be.
National Poetry Month.
Oh, and we mentioned Ezra Pound earlier. There's an epigraph to this poem by Ezra Pound, coincidentally. It's called "Where Lies the Passage of Light," after Ammon's great 20th century confessional poet, Ammons. This is from Ballatetta, Ezra Pound's poem. The light became her grace and dwelt among blind eyes and shadows that are formed as men. Lo, how the light doth melt us into song. I have considered how light spills without intent, and how the mule deer's dark morning legs defy nothing as she nibbles bitter shoots. My backdoor light asks nothing and marks the foreheads of the hills, while I slaughter hourly beasts by its rhythm to weave another day's geography of purpose. I watched the cottonwood leaves rot in the blonde grass under fat beads of October dew. Only weeks ago, I bathed in the spinning silver they gathered from their tree, drinking the magnetic river that now pulls them low. A spider darts along the twinkling curtain rod that staves the rays that bear all shape and slant eddies of meaning. Breath deepens toward the need for meat and grain. I'm certain what should be cleaned and what gathered, children to be taught of their great ascent. Nothing escapes the trail of earth's way from comforts and pains, my ears ringing in their own hollows. Dawn's horses shake their manes against the spectrum of wide tomorrows. The heart is a basket of such flutters, passed from night to this, and stars will fade to light's excess.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, it's one of those contemplative, watch the hour, go sit around and see what the light does poems, like one of
Mhm.
those contemplative, be still for a while poems.
Mhm.
Should I keep going?
Absolutely. If you have more to share.
This one's called The Edible Myth, A Natural History for Frank Stewart, wonderful poet that lives over in the Hawaiian Islands. There's two Hawaiian words in it. One is mele, which is the ancestral Hawaiian chant, and the other is honu, which is The Edible Myth, A Natural History for Frank Stewart. We eat and are eaten in the blonde grain riots at each November's turn. Trembling stars tickle the black plum and all the stock on the farm. Gogol's pig matter-of-factly snarfed up a stumbling chick feeding in the black morning mud of the high Russian steppe. Raw or cooked was always the question. Homer's rhapsodies of wine spills and roasts, ships launched on the hermetic hour. We learn bread in the seed's flower, orange-robed Maasai drip flat. The banyan sheds another arm, plucked by open ache of mouth. A chunk of day on an archipelago is born of secret mantle plumes. Cracks occur to shelter fern, fissures for lichen, and therein an aphid of infinite burning. The ore of Darwinian atolls submits to this nibble of the Pacific gyre. Only 8 cells of a human body are never replaced, and they starve, demand a minute each hour, crave seared flesh in the wrists bearing the bowl, like a mantis locked in the notion of its catch. The Honu swim farther each year, seeking a familiar metallic taste, and the earth has taken askew, no melee to put us at ease. The bent legs of the sleek egret remember in their stride the face of every meadow. The trill of the pre-dawn thrush opens the stoma. Breath is our glow.
That was you definitely have a way with the visuals, and you have a delightful reading voice. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that.
That is working today. It's a 50-50 shot.
And what did you say the kahuna was?
Oh no, I didn't use the word kahuna. I used, there was honu.
Honu,
Is the Hawaiian green sea turtle. So I did my doctoral studies at University of Hawaii, and
okay.
it was a creative writing program there. Frank Stewart was one of the founders of that program. Just a wonderful man, and one of the requirements, to get that degree is to do upper level work, at least one class in the sciences.
Okay.
And I did a Hawaiian natural history class, and I was writing this poem while I took that class. And I was out in the water a lot swimming with the sea turtles because they love to come right up to you and get in your grill. And I became fascinated with these animals. And I actually, that was my seminar project for the science class, was a research on the Hawaiian green sea turtle. And what I learned about them it blew me away. It's there's a poem later in the book dedicated to the sea turtle in 7 parts that covers the 7 life stages of the turtle.
Okay, that makes more sense. And I love that you found kind of a connection there with the turtles, and that you were able to draw upon that. Because I mean, you go to Hawaii, you're gonna involve the wildlife at some point.
Yeah, especially if you're out in the water.
Oh yeah, and you have to be out in the water. It's Hawaii. Do you have one more for us?
Only one more? I have one left?
Maybe two. I still have
you know
time.
what? Let me do. I'm going to actually spring a longer one on you, and the reason is, this year, the great poet Allen Ginsberg would have been 100 years old, and he was also my teacher at Naropa, where I did my undergraduate studies at the Jack Kerouac School, and we became friends. And it was around this time of year, just a few days earlier in the month, when he passed away. And I don't get to read this very often. It's not terribly long, but a little longer than the other ones. And who better, to honor in a National Poetry Month at the centennial of his life?
Absolutely.
Okay. Allen Ginsberg probably needs no introduction as to who he was. He wrote a poem called Father Fisheye, and that's the title of this poem, a name I had for him. Father Fisheye, in memory of Allen Ginsberg. I am an eye, old Father Fisheye, that begat the ocean, the worm at my own ear, the serpent turning around. One, as in Uluru Dreamtime, we share mind's universe. Working for a minimum wage and wearing a paper hat, you served me ice cream from behind a stainless steel counter. I couldn't decipher the strangely Latin flavors. You choose, I said, something chocolate. Soft, deft, diabetic hands scooped the cream into a sugar cone and offered with folded napkin. I need a place to stay, you said, almost embarrassed. Aren't you lofted onto immortal Blakean clouds? You set up monitors in my studio apartment, strange apothecary like Melquiades or Harry Smith. and the appearance of a long empirical stay. As soon as your lab is erected, you fold it down again into shiny stacked aluminum cases and wave goodbye at the door. Sad pressure in my chest as you turn to the darkening street. What was your deduction? What evidence gathered? For what journey did you prepare across the astral splay of the Northern Belt Milky Way? 2. Returning to Michigan, April 1997. The radio announced your death as I drove icy I-96 listening to a long-lost family Christmas feast. Detroit, 1972, gasoline up to 52 cents a gallon, Nixonian energy crisis, price of potatoes rising, the history of attentive uncles by my father, a budding insurance executive dreaming his own red hotels and green houses. And you, teacher, already battle-scarred in revolution games, were immersed in your new mindfulness practice in cities far away. This very night I sat at holiday table, you dreamed of kissing Einstein's thumb. Flying back to Arizona over the flat, roadless West Texas earth, I studied the crinkled web of arroyos, manifold Apachean tributaries, olive sagebrush shelves and shadeless dusty groves, not even cattle mulling in the alkaline reaches. I thought of your mashed jackrabbits en route to Reno, frosty Steens Range radio, hockey sneakers in the Oregon frost, getting sick at roadside. Who will talk to America now, erase its borders and keep track of its prisoners? 3. One cold, rainy March night in '88, 7 of us crammed into Tom Peters' Capri, you on my lap, speaking of Reznikov's old neighborhood woman with bacon hanging out of her mouth like a dog tongue, Ma Rainey's black-bottom vowels and the nuances of Sapphic meter on Arapahoe Ave. I watched you walk off, coughing in the cold haiku rain. You covered your palsied face, and I thought, I hope he doesn't die. 4. Walking around Denver, summer 1989, we stooped to read the Rocky Mountain news through the warped plexiglass of the news box, the streets of Beijing buzzing with student revolt, and the lone student staving off the tank, your Bolshevik DNA a Twitter. A steamy July afternoon and long elevator ride, 23 floors above Anthill, Babylon for radio show, looking down on the sooty rail yards, metal heaps, and blackened warehouses, your Cassidy Denver, long gone, you sang Father Death blues while I tapped beat on the countertop. The host opened the lines for Denver to speak with the noble bard. An eerie gap commenced as all the front range from Loveland to Buffalo Creek and east into the alfalfa flat prairie and all the hot metropolis beneath fell silent. The host repeated, "Come on, Denver, ask Allen Ginsberg anything." The dead air crackled like Kerouac's haunted radio gaps, listening to The Shadow and Old-Time Lowell. I winced at the thought of America enslumbered, in need of the lion's roar, and you just learning how to grow old, floss regularly, oil your feet, and eat your morning millet. 5. Last time I saw you in Naropa Alumni Week, July 1993, a fly on your forehead as you took my picture. Fireworks, children, and beer. Poets under the tent. A hug, and I asked you to play softball. It'd kill me, you said. We stood under a catalpa in the summer field, and I remembered then your glasses punched by a black kid in Patterson, never one for such games, would-be labor lawyer, borscht lover, eulogizer of revolutionaries, mouth of west wind, old Father Fisheye, son of Abraham, son of Whitman and Prajnaparamita. I vow forever to wield thy sunflower, its corolla of bleary spikes, to lift thy scepter, throw thy sickle to the same river twice. I will finish Brothers Karamazov, conjure a million hungry Russians, memorize all the Buddhist categories of heaven and hell, and let my ego die. Vow to kiss Moloch on his baby-eating lips, invite the demon to sit for tea on my rug. They say when you died, your mouth made an O, and they administered the final liquid blue Buddhist food and closed your lips for the last time, something for the trip. No worm will be at your ear. 6. The Detroit News printed flower power and smoke dope next to your obituary. We knew you as crystal-headed sage in crisp white button business shirts, first thought wizard of candid snapshots and scholarly blues who gave up his seat in the auditorium for late arrivals, haiku meditator explaining the updraft from the marsh, taking your shirt off, putting it on again, treaty maker between San Francisco and Kazakhstan, who appeased riotous Chicago streets with mantric calm. Now, ashes in the snow, Dharma nutrient of red feather lakes.
What an incredible tribute.
My teacher.
Yeah. I feel like I know him now, at least a little bit. Because I've heard of him, but now I have more insight, I believe. That was I'm gonna sit with that one for a minute. That was really good.
100 years old. They're having some different celebrations around the country for his 100th birthday. There's an Allen Ginsberg poetry festival and a writing contest, which is still open, by the way, for anybody to write poems. He was a great American and an absolutely integral figure of post-war American history, no matter how you look at it. Very important figure in our history.
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe you did him justice.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here. That is about the time we have, but I do appreciate you again working with me through the technical issues.
Thank you, Erin. It was a gas. It was a hoot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again. And we look forward to seeing more of your work in the future.
Same here. We'll see you around.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Present Poetry Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, feel free to like us, leave a review, or share us on social media. If you are a poet or you know someone who is, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us or submit your work through our website, which is www.present-poetry.com. Again, that is www.present-poetry.com. We can't wait to hear from you.